Okay, whereas there is a quorum of council present at the time of 7 p.m., be it resolved that this inaugural meeting be open for business, and that the minutes of the regular meeting of November 9th be approved. Do you have a mover?
I move.
Harold, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. And?
So before we begin, if each member of council wants to stand and take their oath, they have officially already done this, but we'll do a ceremonial swearing in. So we'll start with Mayor Burke, if you want to stand and read your oath.
I, Kevin Burke, having been elected to the office of mayor in the municipality of the township of Sables-Spanish Rivers, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or any improper manner. I will disclose my pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, and I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it is the same force and effect as if made under oath.
So we'll start with, we'll go alphabetically through council. So if Councilor Burns would like to start.
I, Councilor Burns, having been elected to the office of councillor in the municipality of the township of Sables-Spanish River, do solemnly promise and declare that I will fully, truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, and I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it is the same force and effect as if made under oath.
So Councilor Krabs.
I, Harold Krabs, have been elected to the office of councillor in the municipality of the township of Sables-Spanish River, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or any improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear the true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, and I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously, believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Councilor Fairburn.
I, Edith Fairburn, having been elected to the office of councillor in the municipality of the township of Sables-Spanish River, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or any improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, and I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Councilor Hobbs.
I, Mary Ann Hobbs, having been elected to the office of councillor in the municipality of the township of Sables-Spanish Rivers, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or any improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, and I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Councillor Phillips? And then oh, sorry.
Wait till first.
I mixed up my alphabet, sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
Councillor Marchica?
I, Mike Ruchiga, having been elected to the office of councillor in the municipality of the Township of Sables-Spanish Rivers, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or any improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, and make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as made under oath. I do have an addition, and I'd like to put out, I had asked at the beginning for an alternative declaration that would make pledging allegiance to the King optional. But after consultation with our municipal advisor, I was told that the oath would need to be completed as is in order to take my seat on council, which I've done. I feel that in order to move forward with truth and reconciliation and to improve our relationship with Indigenous neighbours, we need to acknowledge the Crown's negative impacts on Indigenous people, especially with the recent discovery of hundreds of unmarked graves of innocent children at residential schools and properties. I would hope in future those elected to council will have the option of not swearing allegiance to the King if they choose. This is currently an option in British Columbia.
Councillor Phillips?
I, Cheryl Phillips, having been elected to the office of councillor in the municipality of the Township of Sables-Spanish Rivers, do solemnly promise and declare that 1, I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. 2, I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or any improper manner. 3, I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. 4, I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III. And I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
So having taken their oath, I think we can proceed with our business.
We'll call the meeting to order. We begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are on land that has been inhabited by Anishinaabe Nation. We'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Sagamok Anishinaabe, and we would like to give thanks for sharing this land. Welcome to the council table. We've all been elected to have a voice in the decisions of our municipality. Remember that your voice is the voice of our citizens. We've been elected to govern the municipality. We're not here to manage. We have capable people that manage the township affairs, and we'll work with them to ensure that this is carried out in an efficient, professional manner. It's important to let our people do their jobs. We have a specific code of conduct, and I encourage you to study it and live by it. This will make life easier for all of us. How can you honestly govern if you're breaking the rules to do it? Breaking the code of conduct puts council decisions in peril and can cost the township considerable amounts of money in legal fees and damage the reputation of our council. There's much to do. Property standards, try to clean up our township. Township staffing, we're gonna have all kinds of challenges. It's getting harder to attract people and hire people. And lots of investment in our firefighting capabilities are on the horizon. Indigenous relations, that has to improve. Improve our communication with the public. Health and safety awareness for our citizens. Issues of homelessness, addiction, and mental health. Improvements in our local health care. Promote cultural events, outdoor events, whatever we can do for our township to shine. There's a lot of work ahead of us, and I feel that this council is very capable of achieving many great changes that we need to see. I look forward to working with all of you. So let's get down to business. Be it resolved that the following be added to the regular agenda: A6, December 2022 meeting schedule, and C4, repairs to truck number 12. Edie moves, second. Harold, all in favor? Carried. So we'll move to our consent agenda. Be it resolved that items A1, E1, E2, G1, and G2 contained on the consent agenda be adopted. Any questions regarding these items? Accounts for the month, library board minutes, Walford Community Center board minutes.
I went through them last evening, I had no,
Okay. Can I have a motion to accept? Cheryl, second. Mary Ann, all in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that pursuant to section 12(1), 2 of the procedural bylaw, Mike Merchika is hereby appointed as deputy mayor for this term of council. Second. All in favor?
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mike.
Thanks.
Okay, council orientation sessions. I believe we have 2 dates, December 15th.
And then January 17th is, Spanish is going to host a session from 5 till 8 p.m. on the 17th, and it's with Municipal Affairs and Housing. They come and do, that's one of the freebies that you get from them, and I'm not sure if they're going to, if there were refreshments, we could give them a couple bucks.
That's Spanish.
Yeah, Spanish at the complex.
And that's what time in Spanish?
5 p.m. till 8 p.m.
Okay, and Espanola is,
9 AM sharp, and it goes till about 3:30.
yeah,
They're gonna bring in lunch. If anybody had any issues with it, they're probably just gonna bring Subway and some coffee and things. If anybody had any food issues, so you let me know, and I can let Joe Burke from Espanola know. Jeff Edwards is our emergency management coordinator. He is willing to come and do a 2-hour session with council, and it'll cover the roles and responsibility of council during an emergency, financial compensation, and how to declare an emergency. If we can pick a date that is suitable, he's willing to either come here, or he can do a Zoom, but it's whatever council's choice was. If we want to do that in January, probably more feasible than trying to squeeze anything else in December.
yeah, I don't want to squeeze anything more into December. Can we count on everybody on attending that training in Espanola?
I'll be going to Spanish, I can't do Espanola because
Okay.
I have to go to Sudbury that day, but.
Okay, you got
Is
it.
that, do I have to let them know myself?
No,
then?
no, I've given them a head count for,
Okay, I'm gonna go to Spanish.
yeah, I've asked Pam to set 7 seats aside for Spanish,
Okay,
and two staff are going to the one in Espanola with council, so Amanda and I will attend the one on the 15th.
And I'll go to 15th.
Yeah.
It's on Thursday.
Yes. So even with Jeff Edwards, it could even be February. There's not a big push to get it right away, but I mean, as we're doing training and stuff, so if it's whatever works, if you think January's gonna be too full, we can do sometime in February,
let's see what January brings, maybe.
okay?
And we'll make a decision if we want to do it later in January or if we want to do it in February.
And then I also noted in my report that Aqua is looking at doing their standard of care training session for all of their council. They don't have a date yet, but just to put it on your radar that will be coming. Conversations with the town of Espanola, they're also looking at booking J.R. Richards to give council an overview of the planning process and what your role is. I did have Amanda give everybody a copy of the current zoning official plan, so that's some, when you can't sleep some night, take out your book.
Kind of like counting sheep, eh?
So that's pretty much that, unless anybody had any other training questions or things that they've thought of. But I think if you attend the one on the 15th, and then again the one in Spanish in January, see how you feel after those. If there's others that, I know Mike, you had brought forward about the AMO one, see how these go. If you feel that you still want more, we can certainly register, we'll pass a motion to register someone for that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about committees there, anyway, but the Oqua session is probably a good one too. I remember taking it
Yeah.
at the beginning of the last year.
Which one's that guy?
Well, it discusses
water one?
water
Yeah, the
and our
water, the-
responsibilities
Yeah.
towards that after the whole Walkerton thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's an eye opener, for sure. Hopefully, no one ever makes mistakes like that again. And of course, the zoning, that's a good session too. We did them all. So whatever people can attend, I mean, people have lives, but let's make it a point if we can to attend all those. Okay, so boards and committees. The municipal insurance renewal, we're gonna shift to
Yeah, so we're gonna just hold the
latter part of
insurance.
the meeting because we have to do some closed session on that. So let's talk about boards and committees.
So that's the chairs, to appoint members to the chairs of the committees we currently have.
Okay. So we have a Public Works Committee. I'd like to nominate Harold Krabs and Casimir Burns as co-chairs. Are there any other nominations? Going once, going twice.
That means they're quiet, that means they're accepting?
Harold and Kaz, do you accept?
Yes.
I accept.
Very good, thank you. Parks and Recreation, I'd like to nominate Mike. Any other nominations from anyone? Mike, you accept?
I'll accept that, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Economic Development, I'd like to nominate Edith Fairburn and Marianne Hobbs to co-chair. Any other nominations? Edith and Marianne, you accept?
Yes.
Thank you. Finance, I as head of council will chair the finance committee.
Those
That's
these are
after.
chairs of
These-
our
yeah.
committees, yeah.
These are committees of council, so that's on that. And that such appointments be reviewed from time to time as determined by council. Can I have a mover? Accept. Mary Ann, second. Harold, all in favor? Carried. We'll discuss the composition of the boards in a minute there. Be it resolved that the following members of council be appointed to the following boards. So the library board requests 2 members of council. I'd like to nominate Mary Ann. And then I'll put my name forth for the second spot. Are there any other nominations for that? Then being heard, Mary Ann, do you accept?
Yes.
Very good. It's written here as a member and an alternate, but they actually want 2 full-time members. So, Walford Community Center Board, nominate Cheryl. You accept, Cheryl?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's your home turf. Museum Board, we need someone for the museum. Edie, would you consider sitting on the museum board? Any other nominations? None being heard. Thank you, Edie. Massey Ag Society. Counselor Phillips, nominate you. Any other nominations? None being heard, you accept?
Yes.
Very good. Now, there's a number of other boards that will come into play. La Cloche Foothills Board, which is the mayors of the local municipalities. Public Health Sudbury District, they want 1 member from the 4 municipalities. Sudbury Manitoulin District Services Board is usually 1 member between Baldwin, Narren, and us.
It's 2. It's 2 members.
Oh,
between
2,
Baldwin
sorry,
and-
yeah. But us being the big brothers of that one, I kind of expect us to be on that board. And there will be a police services board formed sometime during our term. We're going back to that. The OPP are kind of resisting, but anyway, so can I have a motion that we accept the nominations to the boards? Cheryl, second by Mike. All in favor? Carried. So, boards and committees, we have to discuss the composition of the boards and committees. So in the last term of council, Public Works was a committee of the whole, which meant councilors and mayor only. And the same went for Finance Committee. Economic Development was an open committee. I'm willing to listen to councilors' thoughts on that. Cheryl?
Parks and Rec was also an open committee.
Oh, it was, sorry.
So you have the two that
Yeah.
are packed.
Well, being, because I'm representing the chair, I would like to see if we would put out, maybe to have one person from the west and one from the east, and we have, in this area, that way we have transparency. If people in Webwood have an issue, they have representatives to support them, people in Walford have an issue, and we can discuss this all at the committees. The committees have to realize though, because I've had people ask me, well, how much power does the committee have? Well, really the committee doesn't have power.
Yeah.
What the committee there is to do is, they're gonna bring the issues forward and we're gonna discuss them, and then those issues will be brought to the council. But it makes the transparency so the ratepayers do have a say, they do have an input, and it does make it to the table, rather than saying just, well, we didn't know what was going on. Now, and I'm sure that there's gonna be people that are gonna probably go for those positions. We could have like, they would have a bit of a resume, job description type of deal, what your experiences are, what you can do, how you like, whether it's mechanical, whether it's construction, whether it's whatever. And then we can have a look at those and decide who would you like to have on the committee. I'd like to see somebody from the east and somebody from the west.
Any other
Yeah, but you
thoughts?
can.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I like his thoughts.
Okay. Cheryl, you were gonna say something?
No,
No? Oh, okay. Any other input from anyone?
No, I agree with Bucky's approach on it.
it's worth a try, right?
I think so. That's-
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
like-
I never thought of the east and west thing,
Mhm.
but I would like at least, well, I'd like two people. And I want some qualifications. I don't want us to spend all our time explaining things. It's like, if you're gonna sit on this board, show us your chops to start, and let's see if it works.
Yeah, we want that.
And if it doesn't, if we don't get any qualified applicants, then we'll just keep it as a committee of the whole, you know?
Well, yes, I agree.
I mean, you don't have to be a road superintendent here, but I mean, I don't wanna spend hours and hours explaining things, that's all. So,
I agree.
So just because I have to amend the procedural bylaws,
Yes.
the composition, so are we looking at all of council plus 2 members of the public?
yes,
For
yes,
Public
Public Works, all of council, and 2 applicants.
Oh, that's on the committee?
On the committee, yes.
Just, I'm not saying that I have a problem with that, just that part of the reason for bringing ratepayers on was to, if we overload all the counselors with work, and then they come back to the council meeting as well, it's kind of a duplicate deal. Where, I'm just throwing this out here now, where if we had, the committee would bring their recommendation to council, and that would be basically what you're talking about, the committee of the whole, would be making the decision anyway, but it's just keeping it from doing it twice, and if you're doing it
So
once,
it's 3 members of council and 2 from the public for a composition of 5. Because you're not talking all of the public as the.
no, we'd have to have something like that. And then that way we're not overloading all the councilors with like two meetings just over public works.
I know what you mean, but the problem is, that's a single biggest expenditure in the
It is.
township. And every counselor needs to know about it.
But you will be in the council meeting. When the recommendations come to the meeting, it'll be the council.
You will, but it won't be as detailed as it is in the committee meeting. You know, the committee meeting, you sit down with your road superintendent and, or the, you know, the foreman, and you go over each thing, so.
Well, if every counselor wants on, it's not a problem. I'm just trying to kind of relieve some of the workload and
Yeah.
and maybe spread us out a little bit, that's all.
I think that was our choice, whether we wanted to sit on
Public
it.
Works, I thought Public Works and
Because
Finance.
we did have some that did, I mean, finance, I can see we should all be there,
Yeah,
because it's very.
well, Public Works, because it was a committee of the whole, that's why we were all there.
Yeah,
So now we're opening it up.
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, some people,
And it's not designed for members of the public to give input and sway everything either.
No.
I want a majority of council on a committee, so. Sure, we could go 3 or 4 councilors and,
You want to keep an odd number, so that there's-
Yeah.
so if you go 3 council and 2 from the public,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's not too huge of a committee, so you can actually have
Nope.
good discussion without it getting lost in too
okay.
much. So if you could try, we can try and
We'll,
then see
we'll
how
try
this.
it. If
Yeah.
it doesn't work,
We can make, set this for a 1-year term?
nah, we don't even have to do that. If it's not
If you want
working,
to.
if it's not working, we're gonna fix
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, we're not leaving it here.
Yeah.
We felt that.
So the other elephant in the room is finance. That committee has always been committee of the whole. I'm willing to open that up as well. Again, but this time I won't budge. All of council needs to be on that committee. And again, 2 representatives. That's my feeling, again with qualifications. So, you know, a different set of eyes looking at something. Maybe we can find efficiencies somewhere. Maybe we can find somebody who's good at grant writing, stuff like that. What are your feelings on that?
I agree with you 100%, Kevin. I think committee of the whole plus 2 would be
Yeah.
an ideal situation. There again, ratepayers are getting transparency, they're getting their input in. But there again, the committee is only recommending to the council. That's
Well, that's right. The buck stops here.
yes, right. As long as everybody know that, it's.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're getting their input.
Exactly.
So we're agreed on that then?
Yeah,
Council, all of council and 2 applicants. Okay. Now, economic development is gonna be a little different this time. We are gonna have a regional economic development officer serving the Clochefort Hills. Now, Amanda, which is our local economic development officer, will be involved with any recommendations from there. But we will still have an active economic development committee for the township. Now, I want that committee to take on a little bit of a different role, and we will be changing the name of the committee. It'll be called Economic Development and Community Services. And out of that committee, I would like to see local committees from Webwood and Massey. I considered Walford, but the Walford Community Center, they'll take care of their own things and bring that to the table if need be. But I want community committees to bring their problems. And then they have a voice, and it gets to council on a regular basis. Instead of, you know, people waiting, and then all of a sudden there's a delegation that comes to council in an uproar. I want people to let us know what's going on. And I think that's gonna play a big part in cleaning up our township as well. You know, property standards. We have to be delicate there. Property standards can mean closed session at times when you're talking about individuals. But I look at it as more of a plan coming from the community. Like I've even had people say, listen, pick a day, we'll all come out with our trailers and we'll pick up whatever's on the side of the road, you know? But I look at what Spanish did this fall, and if Spanish can get their public works people out to do a pickup weekend, I'm sure we can do it. We'll have to figure out how and what it's gonna cost us. So those are little ways that I wanna change that committee. I wanna keep what we had there, you know, the fishing derbies and that. Some of it might trickle into recreation as well there. We can work that out as we go along. But, so on that committee, I think we had, what, three or four counselors, and it was wide open for anybody that wanted to sit on the board. I mean, last term I sat on every committee just because I wanted to figure out what was going on. You know, find my little spot, and as we went along, some people decided to move away from certain committees and whatnot. It's your choice.
Economic development, I'd be willing to sit on that. Another thing that's been brought to my attention too is, I work with the Sables-Spanish, and they've been, people I don't think realize how awesome they've been to this municipality for like with the top of mine operation, whatever, because I know it's there because I'm involved in it. And we had a great discussion with one of the members about economic development and you know, commercial and industrial expansion type of thing, where they have lots of opportunities possibly that might be able to work jointly with us to bring basically industrial or commercial work into the area, increase our tax base, create work, create jobs. They would basically said to me, but if you'd like to do this, let us know and we discuss it.
We did have Tammy Manitowoc from Sagamon on our Economic Development Committee, but between COVID and you know, a lot of the hard feelings towards reconciliation and whatnot,
A hard time.
it drifted away, and we really need to. I'm not too concerned with the economic development part of it. I just want to get to be neighbors with them again and just, you know, let's share the good times, let's share some recreation together, let's just be neighbors. And maybe once we get over that hump, maybe then we can talk about economic development. I don't want to go there hat in hand and say, you know, what have you got to share with us? But that's been kind of down that road before, and I don't want to go there. It's like, so yes, there's a lot of work to do there. I want to extend some kind of invitation to the chief and chief and council there. We started out on the right foot the last time, but like I said, it dried up pretty quickly. Anyway, do we have to set a number of
Well, we
committee members
haven't
from
had a
council?
number, and I would like to have a number. It's easier to
Okay.
appoint people when we know how many we're looking for. So if we do
Yeah.
three counselors, so we've got E and Mary Ann as
Marianne as
chairs and co-chair, and then if Councillor Krabs would like to sit on it, that's 3 counselor. We could advertise for 7 member, so 4 members of the public to make a complement of 7. I think a bigger group in that area would be fine.
Sure. And of course, I'm a member of every committee when I feel like sitting down. And I will be for the first little while, you know, just so that we get going down the right path. So I guess that's it for board.
Parks and Recreation.
Oh, Parks and Recreation, yes. Yeah, that's always been an open committee. So Mike's the chair. I'd like to see, again, 3 members of council, so 2 more councilors on Parks and Rec. Cheryl, would you consider it?
Well, I just was going to.
Yeah, good.
I was already on it, so like,
That's right, and that'll help Mike with a little background at times, you know.
not that I just don't want, it's nice to get fresh eyes in there.
Yeah,
It's nice to have the experience.
And Sean's
in
easy
there.
to work with, I mean, he's,
well, there's a lot of work to do there.
and
with
yeah, it
the
was
roof
in
of the
a state and
arena.
a half, but anyway,
Yeah,
he's,
anyone else for
Yeah, I'll go with that one.
recreation?
If you
Guys,
want.
sure,
yeah.
great,
And then you want to do 4 from the public as well, and
Yes.
that'll be a 7 group of 7
yes.
as well?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll fix up the bylaw then to help that.
Okay, so,
we'll do that.
be it resolved that we advertise for interested ratepayers to sit on the following committees and boards to be reviewed at the January 11th, 2023 council meeting. Public Works, Parks and Recreation, Economic Development and Social, how did I say that?
Community.
Sorry, and Finance and Library Board. Could I have a mover?
Oh my God.
Cheryl, second.
I'll
Mike.
say.
Okay, all in favor? Carried.
The meetings, if we want to change.
The 19th, or something?
Well, that's the week of the 9th, and what day would, so the regular council meetings of December are the 11th and the 28th, so.
The 14th. and-
Sorry, the 14th, yeah, January's 11th, so the 14th and the 28th. The inaugural meeting kind of throws that schedule off. There are some other things, I do have a request for delegation to council for December, so if anyone's available the week of the 19th, we could pick a date as an alternate meeting date to clean up some other things before the year end, whatever anyone's availability, and if they're in agreement.
There'll be a few items that won't be a long meeting, so are we all in agreement with that?
Mhm.
The 19th?
Then that's the Monday. The 19th is a Monday, so
Is
what,
it?
is a Monday good, or do you want,
So what time are you looking at in?
our regular meeting is 6
Okay.
o'clock.
Yeah, that would work for me
Yeah.
on the 19th, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We can discuss that.
Okay, so be it resolved that regular council meetings of December 14th and 28th be canceled and replaced with a meeting to be held on December 19th at 6 p.m. Then after that, we'll be done till the new year. Could I have a mover to,
I'll move that.
Harold, second, Cheryl, all in favor? Carried. Yep. Next, fire chief's report. Chief Ramsey, could you come to the table and give us your report?
Sure.
Everybody? Everyone? First off, congratulations, everybody.
Thank you.
So I've been appointed to be your fire chief not that long ago, just in February of this year, so things are pretty new for me. A lot of changes going on in the fire service. It didn't happen too long after I started, so it's been there's a training, retention, recruitment is a big issue. You're going to see some reports from me about equipment and kind of modernizing some of the things that some of the equipment that we use in the fire service. For me, the decisions that are made within the fire department, I make them using my entire officer group. So I rely on the officer group to, which means this time there's 3 other assistant chiefs and a number of captains in each hall. And together we work pretty collaboratively to basically run the administrative part of the fire department. Having said that, obviously being the chief, I have the final say on how things go. But I certainly taken their consideration and issues when we're making decisions. We make them together. And ultimately the decisions that we're making, especially in regards to training, we have to make them with certain legislative requirements, and we have to meet certain legislative requirements that have been changed in January or July, this year. So the Fire Prevention Protection Act has changed dramatically, which affects not just us but other fire departments in Ontario. So we're not alone in some of these changes. They've anyone's familiar with policing standards? Well, policing standards have been around for quite a few years, since the mid to late 90s. But fire hasn't had training standards or any of that type of consistent standard throughout the province that we have to meet, and until this year. So that's kind of been forced upon us. There's a lot of mandatory training that we have to complete, mandatory certifications for a lot of our members, and which means a lot more commitment, which is in this day and age of trying to get volunteers is a difficult thing. So we have a big job ahead of us. But to just keep in mind when you're hearing things about the fire department, if you have questions, I'm an open book. I make the decisions that we make are made in the best interest of the township first, the fire department, and the safety and security of the members of the community. So, if you have questions for me, either through Ann or or if you want to contact me directly, I'm actually fine with that. But that's. I don't know if that's breaking any kind of protocol, but no. Okay. I was looking at Ann. Should have asked before. Beg for forgiveness. But yeah, again, there's a lot of work ahead of us, and the dynamic of the fire department here is changing a little bit as far as people that are getting involved, what we have to do to meet those requirements for training, and in that, we're reviewing equipment and trying to modernize some things. So there's lots. You'll see a lot from me. The reports that I've given council, I try to be as comprehensive as I can with them. If you find that there's something that is maybe missing or that you want me to add into it, I'll certainly add some more pieces in there. I like to have fresh eyes on it, so after a while we could maybe the ones that you've seen over the course of since February. If you want to see some additional information, just reach out and I'll add that information for you. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Again, welcome aboard.
Just to mention, we used to have a committee of sorts with the fire chief and that, but Blair comes to the council table regularly and keeps us in touch with what's going on with the fire department. So I don't really find we have a need for that. It concerns all of us, so breaking it up into a committee
Yeah, and that's one of the things that one of my goals, and I've noticed when I started that there's a bit of a disconnect between I think council and the fire department. So I want to change that.
Yeah, well, you are changing it.
I hope so, and we'll continue that and make it better. We're all working together.
All right, that's it. Thank you, Blair.
Thank you.
Be it resolved that the fire chief's report for the month of November 2022 be accepted as presented. Do you have a mover? Edie, and a seconder. Kaz, all in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the attached progress payment number 4 in favor of JI Enterprises in the amount of $19,650.20 including HST for the Algoma Front Street Water Main Replacement Project be approved for payment. Can I have a mover? Edith? Harold second, all in favor? Carried. Call knowledge.
Yeah, do you want to talk about it, or do you want to
Sure.
forward, or?
Well,
How do you want to?
We'll discuss it.
yeah, we need to discuss it. yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's, do you want to?
So we did receive 2 tenders on the, we've named it Caldwell Bridge. It's a culvert on Lee Valley Road that needs to be changed. It's at a point where much longer, and it'll probably be an emergency repair if it does fail. There was a lot of lag in getting the tenders out through our engineer, but they eventually did. Received 2 tenders back, and you'll see in the report, one is at 1.2 million and the other is just shy of 700,000. So WSP, our engineer on the project, has checked references and everything seems fine with the lower tender. The concern, I would assume, is the time of year, because Lee Valley Road would have to be shut down while that culvert is removed. It's a cement culvert going back in, and the route would be detoured through Pleasant Valley. Now, it's not the greatest, and there's concern with the school buses that will have to go. It's gonna, not only just the route, and the time that it'll add to those, but just the safety. It's a further out road, so it doesn't get, the plows and the sanders don't get there as quickly as some place close to town. That would probably have to change. There is the suggestion of building a road around, like next to the culvert. putting it in- Yeah, so that they could continue. The contractor that is being recommended feels that they could start right away and have this done fairly quickly. But that's a choice council will have to make. If we put off till spring, then we're waiting probably till summer. Once the water levels drop, that is I think, I don't know if it's a navigable water, if they consider it that, but it's an actual waterway, so the work permits and everything to get to do this project, so.
So, Chairman of Public Works.
Well, I spent quite some time last evening. I went through this scope of work and how it'll be as the standard specifications, whatever. Compared the two contractors, it looks like we have a very competent engineer on board here. I've been involved with this for quite some time. Not an engineer, but we've done the work. So it looks like both parties, both contractors have done their homework. Of course, they have to follow the engineer because he's there, he's the one. He's got the final say on everything. It's came, I would say, considering the times, very close to his budget that he had proposed originally. It could have been, it wouldn't have been surprising, it would have been higher. But, and I think our lower bid, he has the scope of work, and he has to do the quality of work. And I think another important thing is that, like Ann said, we get this done before the runoff in the spring. We can have all kinds of issues then. It's not a bad time of year to do that.
No.
So
I think the asphalt obviously would hold off till next,
by all means, yeah.
but
Yeah.
good gravel would cover and,
I'm a little concerned if we have to reroute through Pleasant Valley, because winter's upon us. Right now, it's freeze and thaw. It's gonna get messy. It's gonna get slippery. Lots of hills up there. Now, I never even considered a slip road. I thought we would get this done in drier months, but it never happened, for one reason or another.
We're actually in a dry season.
Well,
We are just drying up every night a little more.
But it could change in a hurry.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah. No, it's, at the contractor, he has talked about that as the engineering. I don't think it would be a huge, but it's up to them, I don't think it.
Well, it's a natural creek too, so we have to watch the
That's right.
waterway, we have to divert. And that's the slip road part of it, I never even considered that, but if they can do it, like,
It's been done. Whether it's, then we gotta look at it and say, okay, do we need it, or can we close it? What's the time frame that they're gonna have the road actually closed?
I don't know if they indicate that, I didn't go through to see what they,
It's
figure the
not,
time frame. I know when I talked to Brad Ryan earlier about it, he had said it should only take a short amount of time to do, right?
I'm thinking
Because
after
it's-
the box culvert's on.
Yeah, because they're precast, so it's just a matter of dropping, once you get everything else out and dropping it in a few weeks, maybe?
when
Sorry,
they,
before
when
the
they
end of the
did
year.
Lee Valley Road,
Mhm.
when they did Lee Valley Road right in front of my place, it was over a month. But that's going back 15 years, so I don't know.
Well, then we may just look at, rather than going into the environmental issues, like the pros and cons, okay, should we just close that for the short period of time it's gonna take to do it? It's gonna be beneficial for everyone in the end,
Yes, it is,
both
I think
environmentally,
it's
financially,
amazing.
you know.
Closing it.
right? Yeah, because it's been put off already, right? And going through another winter season, and then a spring breakup, and
And if they're
like,
And then someone goes through the bridge.
we know it's bad.
quickly,
Yes, they could
because the
start right away.
buses won't be running for 3 weeks.
That's right.
Yeah,
We've got 3 weeks, so you don't have to worry about buses.
yeah,
If we can still get out through Pleasant Valley.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
We
It's
still
just-
got the Pleasant Valley access, it's not as if
Yeah,
they
I
can't get out,
mean,
No,
yeah,
so we do have an alternate access.
Public
Yeah,
Works
yeah,
will
we
just
do.
have to change the
well, they're
schedule.
gonna have to get, yeah.
I think changing the
Aggressive, they're
bridge
gonna
at
have to
this
get
time is,
aggressive with the sanding and the, yeah.
changing the
A
bridge.
lot of people rely on Lee Valley Road,
Yeah, yeah.
especially me.
Yeah.
Just on the other side of the culvert.
Yeah.
What would be the added cost of doing the slip road portion, or is that in the quote?
no,
It's
it's
just
not
not,
an
we can get
addition.
around that, it's just, like you said, pretty Pleasant Valley,
Yeah.
we could say it was there, I'm sure.
I would think we should really consider just the Pleasant
Yes.
Valley Road as
Yeah.
another alternate access. I mean, it's not gonna be perfect, but it's not gonna be for a long period of time.
And it'll just require a little more maintenance
Yeah,
than
and it-
usual, right?
and it's gonna
As
save
long
the-
as it's kept right. In the end, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, I'm gonna save the ratepayers a lot of money if we don't do the same thing.
Right.
So Mike, just to
So-
answer your question, so we budgeted 750, so he's just under, and when I did speak with Brad Ryan, he figured for that 50,000 that we still have to play with, that he could easily do it.
Oh, well, that would be,
Yeah.
you know,
So
that's,
it's still
slip-
within, yeah,
the
it's
slip
still
road?
within budget. So-
it's for council decides.
Would that require any further approvals, you know, in terms of, because it's,
They
Yeah.
get,
Yeah.
the engineer will apply for all the work permits through the
Yeah.
ministry, and so they'll just include whatever
Okay.
scope of work that's,
Okay.
yeah, would be a one shot.
So how soon do you think they could start this?
So we can sign this and I'll let them know, they could probably, I would think within a week or two, at the most.
That'd be excellent.
Christmas.
Be done by Christmas.
yeah,
Or possible.
Well, can I have a mover? Be it resolved that as per the recommendation by WSP Canada Incorporated, we accept the tender received from James Latham Excavating Limited in the amount of $695,578.68 inclusive of HST for the Caldwell Bridge Replacement Project. Mover, Cheryl?
Just 34 cents, not 68. Okay.
No, I've got 68.
Oh. It says corrected underneath, because that's,
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
it's like.
I knew it was correct, I thought it was the other way, corrected the other way. Okay.
Oh, okay.
so could I have a mover?
Cheryl.
Harold, second. All in favor?
I think this is,
No way around that one.
yeah, This is the best move.
No, there's no way around that one. The timing is unfortunate. See if I'm still married when it's okay, next up we have guardrails on the old Wedwood Road. That's just discussion, I believe?
No, there's a motion to accept. So the cement truck that went down the slope
Right.
through the summer, it was already narrow, and we've had the bank stabilized, but it's still slightly narrower than it should be, and it's recommended that some guardrails be placed along there, because this is not a budgeted item. It comes to the table to approve if council wants to do it.
I looked at that one again last night. Of course, it was new to me, so it's hard for me to say, okay, we're gonna spend some money. The road is narrowed up. Unfortunately, I didn't get time to even go and look at it. Just in my head, what I'm thinking is, rather than go, maybe it doesn't work, but maybe we should look at the plan rather than putting the guardrails in, expanding the width out, maybe putting it on grade so you don't have that issue. There may be some material, I don't know if we got any, I think it's just a basic fill type material putting in there. We don't have another project coming on, we may have some material that we use as a bulk fill in there.
Not right now.
No. If that road is narrow, I think it's, then you also create more problems for the public works on the snow clearing. Like you're gonna put guardrails in there and then you're gonna be, you can possibility of damaging them. But maybe the road needs to be widened back up before we do anything.
Yeah.
So we don't, just so we don't create another monster for later and say, I wish we would have. That's all. I'd like to have a look at it sometime, defer that to another meeting to, unless it's a real panic.
I mean, I'm thinking, myself, just looking at this, I'm thinking 20,000's a pretty quick fix. I mean, 20,000's 20,000, but if it stops somebody from going over an embankment, it's pretty cheap peace of mind for now. Because I mean, if we've got to rebuild, if we got to widen that, it's gonna cost us a good chunk of change.
Well, that's classified as a two-lane road, correct? So a two-lane road would have to be a minimum width.
Yeah, but we've had issues there for a long time.
That's right below the cemetery? down that hill?
And we rebuilt it
Yeah.
and widened
I
it.
went that way a couple weeks ago, I didn't know anything about this, and it's noticed it's on the left side, right? Yeah.
I'm just wondering if it should be, if we should look at whether it's feasible to widen it or not, whether it should be, because they're talking about being a concern, that's all.
Well, should we install the guardrail?
So the widening can be costed out. Options. Could you reuse guardrails?
Well, so we just want to
Yeah, can
go.
guardrails be reused? Can we?
Depends on the kind they are.
What were they gonna put in there, what type of, was that flex beam?
Steel beam. It's a steel.
Steel.
Yeah, that's some seal there. Yeah, so once you get that in there, it's kinda hard to do anything now, that's all.
Well, then, let's, I guess we'll defer this, we'll look at options of widening the road. Well, we're not gonna get that done this winter.
No, it's.
So we gotta live with it the way it is until springtime and then.
Do you want some input from Al is here? Or do you
Sure,
want some- Al, you have some input too? Council, this is Al Renault, he's our new public works manager.
Hello, everyone.
Nice to meet you, Al.
So I had a look, and the reason we recommended the guardrails, widening the road, there's not much space on the right-hand side. The telephone poles are almost ready to get up against there. So we can get a couple feet maybe of width, but not a lot. So I think the guardrails would be something that would remain there permanently, because the road, widening it out more, that embankment's pretty far down too, like it's a 50, 60 foot drop or something. So it's like there's be a lot of work, and then there's a natural stream that goes through there, so there'd be some environmental stuff as well. So that's why we were recommending to put a guardrail in. and it would definitely help, you know, the safety of the public, who hate to have anybody go down that hill and end up down that embankment. There used to be some trees and stuff before the cement truck went down there, so that was something to kind of stop people, but that all got taken out with the truck when it went down the embankment, so.
So refreshing, are we just talking about the one side here or both sides?
Just the one side, 85
So
meters.
would we
of
be
guardrail.
able to widen from the other side if we chose to? Or-
Very, very little without moving some telephone poles, so the poles are, I think maybe like 5 feet off the road right now or something on the right hand side. It was already a narrow road, and now it's
Yeah.
with the embankment
I know.
gone, it's even more narrow. It's still legally wide enough to be a 2-lane road, but the guardrails would make it so if anybody in the winter time, you know, somebody's coming down, get a little close, and you know, the snow covered,
Yeah.
it's hard to see, and you get one tire over there and down you go.
The ditch looks like the road.
Well, that's good. That's answered the questions that I was
Yeah.
inquiring about. You've done the research, I'm glad to see that. You've done your homework. And,
So widening the road is a possibility, but it would be quite an investment to do it, and this is a way of, you know, ensuring that nobody else goes down the bank. We measured far enough that we were blocking the whole section that's open.
It's an element of safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's- yeah, well,
So that's my recommendation on that.
So were we ready to go with this? Okay.
Thanks,
So
Bob.
be it resolved that we, thank you, Al.
Yep.
Be it resolved that we accept the quote from M&G Fencing to install 275 feet of steel beam guardrail on Old Wetwood Road at a cost of $20,930 plus HSD. Could I have a motion? Cheryl? Second, Edie. All in favor? Carried.
yeah, my questions are answered. That's great. That's great.
Save you drive.
Yeah, save me a drive.
Well, the vote go to the parking, since I was still
Okay.
on roll.
Sure.
So I circulated late this afternoon, in addition to the agenda, which is the repairs to the plow truck. So Al is here, he can answer questions.
So this is with regards to 2005 tandem truck number 12, complete repair or partial repair. Did everybody read that? Okay. Al, was,
Yeah, so tandem truck number 12, the clutch failed on it. And we had the mechanics have a look at it and tell us it was coming near the end. But now a couple times the guys have been out and just barely lived the truck back here. So we don't want to be out there driving this, have this fail for obviously the safety of the public and the operator. So it does need the clutch replaced. So just the clutch alone is about a $4,639 repair. But while we have the clutch out, the truck is a 2005. It has an original transmission and clutch in it. While we have the transmission out, it's recommended that, you know, we would put a rebuilt transmission in it at the same time and replace the linkages and stuff on the truck and extend the life of it. It's going to cost us a little bit more at the moment, but if in 6 months from now the transmission lets go, then we have to pull that transmission out again and redo the job. So it would, while we have everything out, we put everything new in, and we'll have a nice reliable truck to plow the roads this winter and help with the roads this summer. So
Because it's parked right now, you said, right?
yeah, we had to park it. So
Yeah. It's not normal that 400,000 can be changed in a transmission. Like we're in the trucking business, unless it's showing some kind of a problem that like it's not really a lot of miles or kilometers, but it's,
just given the age of it and the amount of like the type of work that it's been involved in, that's what is recommended. And we did do it on the 2011 truck. We had the shift works replaced on it as well. I didn't get the cost on that. I didn't get a chance to get that, but it was fairly significant cost, and so that's why we recommended it. And I'm good with either one.
Has the transmission given you any problems up until now?
Nope.
Just the clutch?
Yeah, just the clutches. Gone.
What do you think, Kaz?
Well, lots of times when you're doing a major component like a transmission or an engine, you get a core, so you get a money back for your old. I don't see that on here. Because they rebuilt that transmission, you said it was a rebuild,
Yeah.
so they needed to use one to rebuild it.
Yeah.
So you get something back for your old
Get
transmission.
back for that, and you probably get it back on the clutch too.
Yeah.
But I don't see any core charges here.
That I'm not 100% sure. I don't have an answer on that one.
Yeah.
We getting that through FGI, probably?
I'm not sure where
It's really coming up for Dairy Industries.
not sure where the purchase. They didn't tell me.
So that was Walford, right?
Walker truck, that's
Right, yeah.
He'll be picking it up. Like I said, it's not, in that industry, it's not a normal practice to change your transmission when you change your clutch.
Yeah,
But I'm just saying.
but 6 months down the road, we blow the transmission, are we gonna pay just as much to remove it all and replace
You
it?
do all the labor.
Because we have a lot of drivers that are,
Yeah, it's a
You
little.
do all that, so if you wanna do it,
yeah,
So it's
I'm
gonna
six,
be-
time.
I'm 6 of one, half dozen the other.
Yeah. That's what
I mean, is it in otherwise good shape, that truck, or?
Yeah, it's the 2011 needs to be replaced before the 2005.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Figures.
yeah,
So this is a plow truck, I take it?
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll probably-
Well, if it's in that good a shape, maybe it's worth the investment.
Yeah. I don't like it, it seems like a lot, but
No.
we run them all 1,000,000 kilometers.
Oh, is that right? A
Yeah.
million? Yeah.
And sometimes more. If it's the older, doesn't have all this new emission problems on
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
you're
yeah.
better to rebuild the old in the yard right now to buy the new. Like, we're plagued with trouble with the new
Oh, I
stuff.
know.
Just
We
plagued.
had our share here.
Yeah.
We had our share.
This one has the Caterpillar engine in with
Good.
without the emissions. The
Yeah.
2011
Stick with it, rebuild that truck, I can tell you right now,
Yeah,
rebuild that truck.
yeah. The box is good on it. The truck's in better shape. The 2011, we've had issues with the engine and the emissions on it. It's kind of a dud engine in that truck, and the box on that one is starting to rot. So that one is due for replacement
Yeah.
way before this one is.
You got a good base
Which
there.
I've got a regen in it. How would you call them, emissions?
What's that?
Yeah.
On the 2011?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's given them some issues and costing money. And it's still not running the way it should, so.
I think a muffler's about $7,000.
Well, do we think $4,000 investment on a transmission on top of this is worth its
Yeah.
while? It sounds like it.
Yeah.
That truck's not that old, it's got good.
All right, be it resolved that we accept the recommendation from Public Works Manager, option number 2, to complete the repairs on a 2005 tandem truck number 12 at a cost of $11,293.22. Could I have a motion? Mike, second. Kaz, all in favor? Carried.
Yeah, it's got that Caterpillar engine there. And that's well worth it, though, whatever needs to be done.
I like the expertise, folks.
We just,
You don't say the old
yeah.
machines.
I don't wanna get back to work.
Okay, next up is parking on Imperial Street. We've had a problem. We've had a problem with the park giving parking fines on people parking on Imperial Street from the gate beyond to the gate,
The trail?
just before the hill, the trail.
Yeah.
Dennis, would you like to speak on this?
I would approach the town council or Mrs. Whalen, and I know why it's no parking all the way on Imperial Street. It was put in there by Rodney Hoole on the fire department end, because it created a problem at fair time when people were parking on both sides of the road and you couldn't meet two vehicles on there. And I understand why it was done, but now, people are getting fines if they're parking in that little spot there and not by the town, by the park people. And a lot of people have approached me and said, we parked there for years and we're not parking in front of their access gate, we're just parking where the big pines are and that. So I was asking council if they could come up with some solutions maybe, and have it maybe up until just before that, no parking, and then beyond there, maybe no parking the month of August to cover the fair, And I know why it was put up there is because they couldn't get emergency vehicles in. So a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people that have got fines there and they're not happy. And it is town property because of the roadway, and I think they should let the people be able to park there, because it's mostly older people that walk that trail. And, I've talked to the ministry and they said, well, they can go through the main park entrance and walk up. Well, you're adding another kilometer to a person's walk. They have to go through the campsite where they have a gang of people staying, I don't know what they call it, but you're gonna have to walk through there to access that trail. I don't think people would like that. Then they said, well, they can go through the graveyard, and I said, well, I know of a native fellow that walks there, and he don't want to walk through the graveyard. They have respect, and they don't do stuff like that. And it's the most scenic part of the trail. So I was just, if council could come up with some ideas about how we can resolve this and still have your no parking if that is the case. But I'd just like to see it loosened up so people can park there and not get fined.
I've got a
Thanks,
question.
Dennis.
Whose property are they parking on?
Okay, so far, what we've got from Parks Ontario is that it's their property and it crosses the road. But you know what? That's our roadway.
We've got
And where people are parking is our roadway.
That's right.
And so I don't see how Parks Ontario has the right to fine anybody there. But they've been pretty firm on it. They were asked if they'd like to attend tonight's meeting, and they,
Well, when I read this, that was my question. Okay, are they parking on the municipal road allowance,
yeah,
on the 66-foot right of way? If they're on that right of way,
yeah.
I'd like to see where the pins are along, I know it was surveyed out because it was the highway.
Mhm.
So I'd really like to establish that to be sure before we say it definitely is, because it's beyond the paved portion, which, yes, it's 66 feet, but to know exactly where those lines are. I mean, we have the plan, if somebody could establish where those bars are, to know that for sure.
because there used to be a fence along there.
There
When
is, and
the-
they got that gate.
There's the
There's the
gate. Nobody parks in front of the gate.
No!
And the other thing is, they're talking about ambulance access. Well, where are you gonna go with an ambulance there? You're not gonna go down. It's like, so I don't know how we're gonna resolve this. I mean, Parks Ontario has to be involved here because they have to stop doing that.
I think it'll be parking on municipal right of way.
Yeah, you're on the municipal road allowance. Cheryl?
When did this ticketing start?
Oh,
I've never heard
a
anything.
couple
never
of
heard
years,
anything about it.
Dennis?
Yeah, it's been a couple of years.
And who's ticketing them?
The park superintendent or the guy who works for the park.
Oh, yeah.
they're up there a lot,
Oh.
like, you know, and I can't see why they would be giving people fines. It's just people wanna go for a walk. But it is posted by the town on both sides, no parking.
Maybe that's how they're getting away with it, because we've got it posted no parking.
But
Then it would have to be
We
our
should-
bylaw.
that would be a town.
should have no
thing,
parking.
Yeah.
They're writing tickets, and like.
But they did
based
put,
on
they
our
did,
sign.
Yeah, based on our.
Yeah, exactly.
Tamara told you that she put those signs on their gate and on their fence, those are their signs?
I asked the lady, the superintendent, I
Yeah.
forget her name right now, but I asked her who put the signs up all along their boundary fence, and she said I did.
So that's what they're basing their tickets on, because they put their
They put
signs.
their signs.
Yeah.
But it's not their property.
The fence is their property, but.
I'd like to see what their ticket books look.
Well, somebody came in here
Oh, really? It's
and
theirs?
said, hey, well, it looks just like, so I turned over, I said, well, it tells you, it didn't have our logo or anything on it, so it's like, well, this is not our ticket. And they said, well, they were told that they could come here to pay it, and then when I turned it over, the back it's got the park's number to call. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's a regular provincial offenses ticket
Yeah.
for parking, so
We don't have a bylaw to collect on any of that.
we do, yes.
We do?
have
Well,
parking, yes,
yeah.
we have provincial offenses for parking tickets.
It's, okay. But maybe we need to look at our
But-
bylaw.
Well,
And
yes,
It's
to see what it says for parking, and I don't know if it needs to be amended, like, if we want to, as Mr. Burke's suggestion was, limit the parking, say, no parking between, June and September on Imperial Street.
Mhm.
So that the fall and the winter, if people park, it's not a big deal, because there's not that congestion on this, and that was what it was to do, it relieve that congestion. Topic for public works.
So they just ticket, they just ticket them when the park is open? or
No,
is
it's, I think
Even
it's
when it's
been,
closed?
I think so, yeah.
Oh.
It's difficult to promote recreation.
Yeah.
Well, we
I
got
didn't know.
ratepayers that are using that here too, like people go up there, they would like to drive up there and go for a walk.
Yeah.
And as long as it's not causing a traffic congestion where somebody can't get through and it's, well, like even if we had parking on one side
Mhm.
versus two
Yes.
sides.
Mhm.
Well, I think parking on the east side is preferred because
That's right.
you're visible
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
down the hill.
Yeah.
If you'd park on the other side, I don't think that would be too wise.
Sometimes you see them there, I've seen
Yeah.
them.
Mhm.
But like, if we restricted it to parking on the east side and we had signs like no parking between the signs, like further entrances, so, because they're talking about they don't have access. So we don't block an access, we sign that property, then if they want to charge somebody for parking in that zone, that's not an issue. Food for thought.
Yeah, I think maybe we think about it, maybe we'll toss it around in public works.
Find out where
Food for
our
Yeah.
line is,
Yeah,
right?
but I mean, the park, finding people for parking on the road allowance,
No.
that doesn't
No.
sit too well. with
No.
me. That's a conflict for sure. So we'll defer that for some more discussion. We'll get to the bottom of it, Dennis.
Okay.
Thanks, Dennis.
All right, next up is the fencing project update.
I can ask the treasurer to give you a slight update, because there has been some recent activity.
Yeah, so, I just wanted to update council, because this kind of had to happen in the lame duck period, that the RFPs went out, and then, with my recommendation, the clerk approved them. A lot of this had been discussed before, and the fencing replacement at some of these cemeteries, that had started back as far as 2019. So I wanted to make sure this project got completed this year because it was in the budget. So an RFP went out, and I included some other areas in the municipality that had it in their budget also, that being the arena and Mouth Park. So we sent it out to, I didn't put the number, but I think about four or five contractors. We received 2 back, and M&G was the lowest, so we awarded to them. And as I had indicated, Public Works did remove all the fencing, and they did start today installing guardrails, so I would assume that and I did let them know that at the Mouth Park, if they were still up, so I don't know if Shaw got there today, but I suggested that we close that road down there too while they're working, just to make sure nobody's down in there, and then we'll get those replaced with guardrails. And then we shifted to guardrails at the arena, because for some reason it was fencing, and in a parking lot, they said that makes no sense to have fencing. It should be guardrails for safety as well as durability, plowing snow, things like that, so that was it. So if there's any
And are you
questions.
still waiting for locates to finish? some
One
of the-
locate.
Okay.
That's why they started the guardrails first, because they're still waiting on one locate for one of the fence locations. And they will also be, I made the decision to, because some of the intricate and gates and the fencing in the Walford cemeteries, that was something that a lot of volunteers had worked towards. So I thought a good compromise would be to keep the gates if we could, and the signs and the fence posts, and I had Public Works go and check on. So some of them are bent and a little rusty and that, but the durability was still there. So they'll refurbish those a little bit, clean them up, straighten them up, put in some black chain link for fence in the front. We're just doing the sections that we removed. We're not doing the whole perimeters of the cemeteries, so.
Refresh my memory, but at our last council meeting, didn't we discuss not having fencing at the cemetery?
Yeah, but I think it was a liability thing, or I forget what it
Yeah,
was,
I think for ourselves,
but-
as a
And they want-
municipality, I think it's smarter for insurance purposes, liabilities, to have them. We have all our cemeteries fenced.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I think for the cost, I don't think this was a significant cost for the work that's gonna get in down there. It is the highway, and obviously, they say the odds of people running into there or whatever, but it's happened a couple
Yes,
times,
it
so
has.
at least some sort of barrier is better than none, I think, so.
So what's everybody else thinking on that?
Was there other options besides like the black chain link? I just
Yeah,
don't find it very
Yeah.
appealing, you know what I mean? It's not really.
Well, I've approved this, so if we were gonna change it,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's what I mean, this happened in lame duck
Okay.
section. I thought galvanized with black signs wasn't as appealing. Iron fencing for replacement is double, triple. And again, if we have an accident there, we're trying to replace iron fencing, where if it's chain link, it's something Public Works can probably go and fix ourselves going forward for maintenance.
What happened with the iron fencing is because they're right on the highway, those cemeteries, every time the plow goes by and pushes the snow back, then you have salt, and that's what happened, it gets eaten all away or pushed by the buildup of snow. Not this year, but, and it was very costly too, because I think if I remember correctly, Laval Bouchard actually built that fencing from scratch that was along the front of those great cemeteries. Like, it's irreplaceable now, but, yeah. So this was the more budget-friendly option. In the long run.
And I'm thinking future maintenance as well,
Mhm.
I think it's more economical.
Yeah.
Because we have 9 cemeteries that we have to take care of within the municipality.
Yeah.
And there's more work to be done on like the perimeter fencing and stuff that you don't see, our cage wire and cedar posts, and it's a continuous project.
Yeah.
Because that was just an update, so
Yeah.
the, especially next.
yes. 2023 Ontario Ice Fishing Challenge. Nada?
Maybe a blurb. Do you have?
That's okay, I'll do it.
I did do it off top of my head.
Sure.
You should report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in 2022, we did the first Ontario Ice Fishing Challenge. It was the first time we ever pursued like an app-based tournament. So how how it works is you're just a community sponsor. You're not running the tournament. So basically it's bragging rights on our part for the community is where you end up in the leaderboard. Our residents that register with our township, they register with us, so they're still entitled to all the provincial prizing and those placements, but we also can offer local prizes for whichever category basically we make up. So we did that. We only had 17 participants the first year, but then so in the summer we did our own tournament with Anglers Atlas and My Catch. We had 40 participants, so it is growing. I think it's just getting used to the app and how to upload your catch. But there was a lot of good feedback, tons of prizes. We had almost too many prizes, but it's never a bad thing. With the help of a volunteer from the community who was an avid fisher, he was great to work with, and he has said that he would help with a new fishing tournament that we put on.
That's gonna be out.
Yeah, that's how. He's very.
And we joined the ice fishing one last year, like late. We didn't get
Yeah.
the time to
Yeah.
push it out to advertise and to promote it. It was like it was, they approached you really late in the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah, we didn't sign up till the end of January,
Yeah.
basically, and it starts February. So this time we have at least a month and a half-ish
Get it out
to
there.
get it out there. It runs for all of February, so they can sign up whether it's the 1st of February or the 20th, like whatever. It's just how many prizes are they eligible for. We do extra local prizes. And just from doing the past two now, from an economic development perspective, I think it is growing and it is positive because now the businesses, before we were just buying gift cards from them, which was nice for them, but now they're also donating. They're getting more and more business and they're getting more invested in it. They're promoting it. They're not just saying, oh, the flyers on the wall. Like, so I would think that for 2023, that would be your tester, your third go round.
And it's not a large fee.
No, this one's only
$20, I think, to register for the ice fishing.
The ice
for
fishing one
individuals.
was very cheap,
It
very,
was
very
really
economical.
economical.
Yeah, something everybody can get involved in.
Sure. And it's no effort. You take a picture of your fish, they judge the size and whatnot,
And handle everything.
you're in.
And to the people that say, oh, I don't want to be on my phone when I'm fishing because I like to relax, the event coordinator's response was, well, if you take a picture, did it happen? Did you really have this big a fish?
Yeah.
Like, prove it. So that was kind of like the catchphrase of the tournament.
And you don't have to be in range of a cell tower. It works on the GPS
Yeah.
part of your phone. When you get to cell service, it'll download it to the
It
organizer.
does. It keeps your secret spots secret.
Yeah. But also, like for the summer one, we kind of left it wide open and we got into Bay of Islands and the Espanola area. I'd like to shrink that this year. I'd like to shrink that to our township.
Yeah.
And then you're bringing in business. But we'll see. Al Schwartz did an excellent job. Maybe we can entice him to do it again this summer. We don't need anybody for the winter one. They handle it all, so. So with that, be it resolved that $1,000 plus HST be allocated from the 2023 Economic Development Special Programming Account to participate as a community sponsor in the 2023 Ontario Ice Fishing Challenge, and that an additional $500 be allocated for local prizes. We have a mover? Cheryl? Mary Ann second, all in favor? Carried. Beautiful. Yes, our chiller. So our chiller needs to be replaced. Did everybody look over those?
How old is that?
Eh?
How old is that?
2001.
Yeah. They don't last forever.
Yeah. I remember putting that system in there.
Oh, really? Well, that's interesting. 21 years, not bad.
So this was a budgeted item, but because it's over budget, it comes to the table for approval.
Over budget by how much?
25?
Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds right.
27.
Well, we can't live without it. Be it resolved that we accept a quote from Tormont Simcoe for the replacement of the chiller at a cost of $151,755.20 plus HST, with work to be completed in the spring of 2022. Could I have a mover? Cheryl, second. Kaz, all in favor? Carried.
I'm surprised that Mel Air didn't get back to you. Who's your contact there?
I don't know, that's Sean would have looked after that, I'm not sure who. I know he spoke to, they did come and look, and didn't quote. Because they said, they, yeah,
They
and,
supply the chiller to them, so.
Yeah.
That's not part of the country, right?
Might know the owner of Mel Air.
Yeah, I might do.
All right, moving on. We're looking at the third and final reading of the Massey and Dixon drains. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-39 being a bylaw to provide for drainage works in the township of Sables-Spanish Rivers be read a third and final time and passed in open council.
Could we have a little bit of, we're new into this?
Well, that's true, eh? That's the first time. Yeah, this council, last council dealt with the first.
Yeah,
and second.
just a little bit of,
yeah, so
I have no
this,
problem with it.
yeah, so
Yeah.
this drainage report, they found a clerical error in the report. So they had to follow, we have to follow the same process, whether it was a brand new report or an amending report. So when some severances were done and they were doing a section 65, which reallocates the proportion or reproportions the drainage assessments, they found the error. So we had to do the public meeting, we had to appoint the drainage superintendent. So last council meeting was the quarter review or quarter revision, so that if people had an appeal on their assessments, they had that opportunity. And prior to that, we did a first and second reading of the bylaw to announce that it was council was considering it. So we had to wait our statutory timeline after having the quarter revision, and now we've received no appeals. We can move forward and accept this report and give the bylaw third and final reading. So those assessments that have been established in there, going forward, if there's any work done, that is what each person's percent will be based on.
So the structure.
Yeah, the assessments change.
There's no cost.
No.
You didn't get charged anything for
No.
them to do this because it was their mistakes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there's only a few that changed, like he
Yeah.
sent me, I think maybe 5 sheets within that whole report that I had to replace. So it's not every person had a change, it's just a few within one section of the drain, one of the feeders or whatever you want to call them.
Again, nobody came forward to the quarter revision, so we're satisfied. So, could I have a mover for that one? Edie, second. Cheryl, all in favor? Carried.
You're gonna get tired of these new guys keep asking these questions all the time.
That's good. That's what we're here
That was us last year.
That's what we're here for. Yes. Okay, I'll ask Chris Beaven from Intact Insurance to come to the table and discuss our insurance policy.
Sure. By the way, just, is this in camera?
No,
or-
this, we'll
not
do the
yet.
regular and then we'll go into closed and
Yeah.
we'll discuss the cyber.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to the table. This is exciting, because now it's not over Zoom. So, to introduce myself, my name is Chris Bevan. I'm a partner at Kennedy Insurance in North Bay, Ontario, and I'm the representative that Intact Public Entities elects to do municipal insurance in this, on the west end of Sudbury and also in the North Bay area, because we have an expertise in our office and they prefer to use us for their services. So with the municipal insurance presentation, it's one of those things because there's incumbents, but there's also new councillors that are coming on. So this is sort of an orientation, but also a review for those that understand a little bit about municipal insurance. Municipal insurance is a very complicated matter that has a lot of implications based on the fact of the breadth of responsibility that a municipality has for duty of care to its citizens. There's only a minor or small part of the insurance community that even considers municipal insurance, and currently in Ontario there's only 4 programs that are really viable and actually providing municipal insurance services. So Intact Public Entities is a company background. They were Frank Cowan Company, and Frank Cowan Company was providing municipal insurance for over 90 years. So Intact Financial Corporation, which is the largest private insurer in Canada, purchased Frank Cowan Company in 2019, and now they've taken over the name of the Intact brand. There's 2 benefits to this because Frank Cowan Company developed a relationship with municipalities across Ontario and also an expertise because they have in-house services that support the municipality and they're not additional costs to the municipality. But then to be purchased by the largest private insurer in Canada, there's a lot of expertise and capacity from the insurance side that comes in to help the program as well to keep stable. Within the report, I'll highlight this a little bit, but let's talk about the state of things. Over the past 4 to 36 months, municipal insurance has definitely entered into a hard market situation. Hard market, for those that have not heard about this, a hard market is when there's reduced capacity from insurers and pricing is usually increased due to an increased severity and claims experience. The last soft market was around 2018, and there was a lot of RFPs that went out, and pricing that came back from certain insurance programs was substantially lower than what the current incumbent was asking for, and what that caused was sort of a destabilization where business was being bought, and then as time went on and claims were realized, it's one of those things where the insurers that were part of that program are not able to continue and provide rates, and they dropped out. Because a managing general agent like Intact Public Entities is constantly moving between insurers and bringing them in and out. So that's kind of the market scenario. I do foresee there's a lot of challenges in the municipal sector, and I don't foresee this hard market ending in the next 12 to 24 months. And I'd really like to highlight a situation of joint and several liability to kind of give you the sort of unknown of everything. We can talk about property damage claims, we can talk about things that we can see, touch, and know that are there, but it's the liability of everything that I think I'd like to focus on just right now, which gives a good framework to understand the responsibility of insurance as a service, not a commodity. And in the report that I provide to council, I'll just give you an example of joint and several liability and how it comes into a municipality, because the municipality is usually the largest liability holder. So, a 2-car collision at a city intersection in 2007 resulted in serious injuries. Lawsuits were brought forward, which were finally resolved in 2019. So in that time frame of 12 years, you're assuming the legal expense costs of that are pretty significant. Also picked up if the claim is accepted by the municipality provider, the insurer, sorry. The claims against the city or municipality were for non-repair of the intersection. So this is minimum maintenance standards, because now we're talking about roads and passages through valleys that are impassable sometimes, or sloppy because of snow, and it's harder to get to. So you're looking at a minimum maintenance standard type of issue here. The trial judge found one driver liable for 50%, the second driver 25%, and the city liable for 25% of damages. The city was liable due to the absence of a stop line at the stop sign, which constituted a state of non-repair. All of the defendants appealed the trial decision. The Court of Appeal dismissed the action against the second driver and increased the proportion of the liability for the city to 33.33%. The damages were awarded at $15.5 million, exclusive of third-party cost disbursements and HST. So what you're looking at that is a significant injury and probably substantial injury that is lifelong, like quadriplegia, future care costs, if there was also a fatality in that, the injured parties, the remuneration to the family members of that injured party or deceased. So with that, the city could have been responsible for $5.16 million in damages plus proportional share of third-party costs, disbursements, and HST. Since the at-fault driver only had $1 million in auto limits as a result of the joint and several liability, the city was responsible to pick up the shortfall. In the end, the city's exposure to the claim increased to $14.5 million plus $480,000 in third-party costs, disbursements, and HST. This represented approximately 93.5% of the total damages awarded. So when you look at this joint and several liability situation in regards to liability, you can understand the strain on municipal insurers and how certain judgments and claim costs are increasing and have an impact on the municipal program and its affordability on renewal to townships and municipalities across Ontario. So I kind of wanted to start with that, to not be the bearer of bad news, just to kind of give you a framework of the things that really do happen. Insurance is a catastrophic type of solution to provide indemnity to the injured party and also to replace property for the township. So in this case, we're trying to provide the best program that's possible. Going forward into the MGA scenario of anti-public entities, I was taking a note of sort of the presentations of different issues that you were coming about. Ann and I have definitely talked during the term about the services that this provider can assist the township with. So in the case that you have an RFP going out for the culvert replacement or bridge replacement over a natural creek, just bringing it back to today as relevant, in the case that that RFP is being developed, you can send it to us and we send it to anti-public entities on your behalf, and they have an internal division of paralegals that are able to bring the breadth of their experience in this type of construction work into the RFP and also give recommendations, not requirements. What will end up happening is they'll give you opinions of where they see the contract to the contractor may be lacking in sort of wording or verbiage, and this is done as a service for free. The other things that are available are risk inspection services, which we've completed this year, which I'll mention a little bit later, but also they have an interior claims division. So any claim that has come through, as we experienced in the past couple of years with the Massey Arena, the claims division is handled directly through the anti-public entities staff, and it's not hired out to a third party, so effectively we're not creating a separate entity to come in and handle the claims of the municipality. It's a service that is not charged as an extra fee and does not increase premiums. It's part and inclusive of the premium that's charged. So is there any questions on the providers or how this is working? I want to allow for some discussion if there's any questions. Okay. So going through the report, I'm hopefully you had a chance to see it, but if not, I'll summarize it as it all. Beyond the actual sort of services that the insurance program provides, they've come back with a schedule of insurance coverage that is being renewed from your expiring term. So effectively here, I'm going to be summarizing overall what the coverages are doing for you as a council and as a township to protect your indemnity. And if there's individual questions, you can bring it to staff, or you can ask me in closed minutes if you have any specific questions. So the general liability, and this is the municipal liability, primarily for bodily injury property damage, is being renewed at $15 million. And there's supplementary coverages that are involved in that too, like voluntary medical payments. Also liability for sewer backups. In this case with water services, if there's a sewer backup and it's a responsibility or it's subrogated against by the home insurer or business insurer that receives damage, this is a liability line for the township that they're the defense if you're brought in. Wrongful dismissal, in the case of an employee being dismissed and they're going back to the Human Rights Tribunal or bringing action against the municipality, that is also included. There's no change in limit there. Forest fire expense, in the case that there is an action of an employee or the township under the definition of insured. Under an insurance policy, there always is a definition of who is actually the policy holder. So in this case, it is employees, volunteers, directors, and officers and council of the township. So in the case an employee starts a forest fire and there's costs that are associated with that, then the liability policy will pick that up. Moving on to the municipal errors and emissions liability, there is no change in the liability limit, and the base limit is $15 million per occurrence. So this is going back to your councils and committees election that you had earlier. So this policy will respond to committees of council or things that fall under the guise of the township. So in the case that you have a separate committee or council or board that that brings back information to the township, and you've agreed under contract to take on their responsibility and their directors and officers insurance through this municipal coverage, we just need to make sure that the councils and the committees that you're assigning, you're able to clearly identify what your contractual obligations to that organization are, just so we're able to protect you better. Because under the named insured section of the policy, we should name organizations like the library if you're accepting the liability of that board, so on and so forth. So we can do a review with staff as you've elected your new councils and committees. Non-owned automobile liability, this is being renewed with no change in limits. So this is if you ask me to do work for the municipality, I don't own the vehicle. The vehicle that I'm using is not owned by the municipality, and I cause injury to a third party. This would be protecting the interests of the municipality of personal injury, where it would drag the municipality back through joint and several for the action of asking me to drive on its behalf, causing injury. Environmental liability, this also comes up from building a culvert or a bridge over a natural river. In the case that there's a third-party suit or damages that are awarded against or claimed against the municipality for damaging any sort of environmental area, this would be the coverage that puts you in it. This coverage is at $3 million per claim, and this is no change from your expiring policy. So as a base limit of liability, you're looking at $15 million as the first layer. There's also an excess layer that goes to the general liability, the errors and omissions, which is also the boards and committees. Errors and omissions will also extend to chief building officials, and also any clerical errors that come back and cause injury to a third party. So you have that. Non-owned automobile and owned automobile for an additional $10 million. So your total limit of liability is $25 million per occurrence for those coverages. Any questions so far? A lot of information. So, moving on to crime coverage. There's no change under this section. Crime coverage is effectively protecting the township in the case of employee dishonesty. There's $1 million per limit for annual term. So in the case that an employee, that senior staff is sitting in the room, if they, in some situations, unfortunately, in our local area in North Bay, these are significant claims that have occurred. There is up to $1 million of indemnity back to the township for that, plus audit expense. There are coverages like loss inside or outside the premises. In the past, this used to be for cash for things that you were holding of value, but as things are going more digital, that's not exactly the case, and we'll get to cyber liability a little bit further on. Accident coverage. This is not a liability policy. This is called an accidental death and dismemberment policy, and this provides coverage to the board members and council members. So if you're injured by doing council events or actions on behalf of council, there is some financial indemnity to you for a weekly benefit, but also if you end up losing a limb or paralysis, there is a limit of insurance that can be paid to you tax-free in that case. I also sent staff, I sent Ann a critical illness application. So what that is also too is as a thank you for your service to the community, in the case that you do end up having a critical illness, which is unfortunate, but it's a listing of 24 different illnesses or impairments. If you do end up having that diagnosed or experience it, there is a tax-free payment to you as a counselor for your support to the community. Also, our volunteer firefighters. So on duty, there is also accidental death and dismemberment coverage to them through this program. If in the case that council ever decided to look at off-duty, our office also has a contract with BFIS to do that if you ever wanted to get in collective bargaining. But there are 70 lives under this program as of right now. So 70 volunteer firefighters over the area would be covered for this accident policy in case that they're injured or have a situation where they need support after servicing the community. Any questions? Move on to conflict of interest and legal expense. This is the legal side of things. This is not a liability policy. Conflict of interest is in the case that there is a motion brought against the councillor for conflict of interest, or a certain decision that is made is contravening an act under the Municipal Act for a conflict of interest. This would be the legal fees to defend the township. Also, legal expenses there for certain things like employment disputes, we can take a look at optional coverages like contractual dispute and debt recovery, but legal expense is sort of, I guess a real world scenario would be employment disputes where an employee is injured and is making a WSIB claim, but WSIB requests an investigation. A separate panel lawyer has to be assigned to that situation. So this would be the legal expense to assign that panel lawyer. It as a description of what it does. So moving to sort of the meat and potatoes of your policy, here's the property that we're going to talk about. So under this policy with anti-public entities, the way it's written is a blanket policy. This is separate from a private commercial policy, which I have experience dealing with, but this is sort of a bigger, more robust type policy where the aggregate limit of all the buildings and contents that you own as assets by the township are accumulated into one number. What this does is it avoids a co-insurance clause sort of penalty in the case of not having enough insurance as opposed to the proper cost to replace. In private insurance, a co-insurance clause is standard on any building or equipment, so in the case that there is underinsurance, the insurer and the owner of that property co-insure the shortfall of the insurance. In a municipal program, this is not the case. As I mentioned, there are risk inspections that are undertaken by anti-public entities. They actually came back and provided value to certain buildings that they inspected to. So this program comes back, gives you a replacement cost, so you're insuring to value, but and it also includes a higher limit of indemnity in the case that you need it at one premises over another. Your total limit of insurance is $17,303,657. So $7 is really. So from there are supplementary coverages that are part of the program. We are providing the highest amount of supplementary coverages. For the sake of time and your questions, I think when you review the report, if you have any specific questions, I can review at any time wordings and how a claim would work and how those supplementary coverages provide support over and above the property limit and claim scenario. Sewer backup is included. Rent and rental value is also there, including gross revenue from rentals that are generated from the arena. That's sort of the one scheduled item, but we can always have a conversation with staff and with council on where other areas of revenue are being generated. So in the case of a claim, you can't collect the revenue, there's indemnity for the lost revenue to your coffers so you can still afford to pay out the projects that you need to do. Earthquake coverage and flood coverage is applicable. There are some changes to this coverage. Unfortunately, we had the situation last year in British Columbia and generally in the municipal world that generated a lot of discussion and changes across the Canadian landscape. So we're going to talk about some changes to those coverages. But the total amount of insurance on your property side with all the supplementary coverages is $20,214,000. So there's a robust amount of coverage there to respond to any one loss if it's fully covered on a replacement cost basis. Any questions? No. Equipment breakdown. This is a coverage, for example, the chiller. The chiller, if it has, because it's a vessel under pressure, in the case that it ruptures or explodes, or there's any sort of damage that way by an electrical surge or brownout, this is not a coverage that's under the property policy. Equipment breakdown is a specialized coverage that is offered separately. BI&I is the largest equipment breakdown provider in Canada, and they are the partner of anti-public entities, so they have presided a limit of $50 million on a blanket basis. This is what they provide to most municipalities. So at this point, the equipment breakdown is there in the case that it occurs. The owned auto, unfortunately I did have to give an auto section, but you know, auto is important. We're all driving automobiles and it's the most liabiliest thing you're going to do in any given day, and the same for the township. But if it snows, there's rockets flying around trying to protect the roadways, right? So in the case of an accident, there's liability associated with that, but there's physical damage with what occurs. And then there's specialty endorsements for fire vehicles carrying explosives or anything like that. So this fleet, the way that it works is we receive a schedule of current vehicles, and then that is updated at the time of the policy renewal. We have a set schedule. This is in Anne's hands for review, and during the term, if there are vehicles added or removed, what we'll end up doing is receive confirmation that those vehicles have been added or removed at a certain date, and then there's an adjusting premium that's given at the end of the year. In this case, there hasn't been one because vehicles have been added, but they haven't retroactively charged you for the prior period. So at this point, this is an advantage to you. Cyber liability, this one I'm going to move to closed section because just generally there's a lot of bots out there. They follow what you do. They listen to things on the internet and they watch for things that are posted. In the case that we say you don't have this or that, there is precedent of claims occurring on the cyber liability front. So let's just talk about that in the closed section. Yeah. Cost analysis. So I mentioned that we're in a hard market. Effectively, the cost analysis that I can tell you is that anti-public entities has provided the minimum amount of increases that they can under the program for this term. They have insurers that are participating in the program, and there are certain classes or lines that usually generate an increase on premium. So this year, the general liability, errors and omissions, and environmental liability have received 11% increases. This is less than their minimum standard, and generally across the industry, that is a very low number from what I'm seeing from other clients that are coming back. The secondary coverages like crime, board members accident, volunteers accident, firefighters accident, conflict of interest, legal expense, as we've discussed, these are not lines that are really generating a massive amount of claims. So what anti-public entities tries to do is minimize those increases on those coverages to reduce the overall percentage of increase to the municipality on the end aggregate premium. So they've kept them incredibly close to what they were last year, and that is something that I commend them for. Because they've been around for so long, they want to see and establish relationships with their municipalities, and they've done a great job over it for almost 100 years. So I really have to commend them on the work that they do, and they have received responses from us to reduce premium just because and offer discretionary discounts to what they can, and they have done that on this year. Coalition, the cyber liability, we'll talk about that separately. Property policy is, or the section of property is what actually has generated the biggest increase within the aggregate program. And this is totally generated by the claims loss experience that you've had. So we're taking forward for the next 12 months the indemnity and the risk of insuring a property that hasn't had a claim yet, the physical things that haven't had to be fixed. But also in their rate, what they do is they take into consideration the things that have had to be fixed, the money that has been paid out. So in insurance, if you don't know, there's a loss ratio where it's effectively dollars in versus dollars out, and that is your loss ratio. In the case of at-fault parties, so in the case of you tendering out a contractor to do a replacement of, say, a portion of a building, their negligence causes that building to falter, and an insurance claim for replacement costs has to be triggered through your policy. If that contractor is subrogated against or their liability has to be put in force, that comes back to the insurance company, and also that impacts your loss ratio and improves it. So that's something that anti-public entities does to protect your loss ratio. Also, it's standard in insurance practice. Equipment breakdown, no changes there. Automobile, there has been a minimum increase applied, but also there's been 3 vehicles added. So effectively, when you look at the rate, they've upped the rate, but the actual cost to the automobile liability is including 3 new units that weren't there last year. So I'm happy with that. As you can see on the cost analysis, the total amount of premium is the total aggregate of your policy. Any questions so far? Okay. Comments on the renewal pricing. I've kind of gone into it a little bit as to where we're at in the market, sort of what has gone on by each line. The comments on the renewal pricing sort of gives you a reference that you can go back to later and just kind of review these comments from me. And if you have any questions on them, you can come back to me at any time. Cyber, I will move on to in closed section. So we will move on to now changes to your insurance. The insurance industry, especially in municipal, is definitely sensitive to massive or catastrophic type claims. For example, we've had a catastrophic claim in Western Canada for flood that was unfortunate in November of last year. So there are changes that are there because what ends up happening in significant catastrophic or climate change events, especially for properties, you take a look at what you were on risk for, because each year you are renewing your indemnity going forward for what is unknown to happen, not what has happened most of the time. So there are changes that move around. One significant change to the environmental, general errors and omissions, and accidental injury and access liabilities, that there's a PFAS exclusion. I'm not sure if you are aware of PFAS or its chemical compounds. It's effectively, to bring it back, it'd be like Teflon. In the 60s and 70s, it was used as a fire retardant, and you may have seen it in the news that it comes up and it doesn't go away. It's a forever chemical. It's one of those chemicals that keeps on seeping down into the ground and never breaks down. What has happened is there have been more and more claims for restoration of waterways and municipal property and third-party property based on the actions of prior municipal services. And what ends up happening through the joint and several liability, also the forever portion of this chemical, there's no actual way to quantify the risk and actually price it accurately. So reinsurers that provide insurance to the insurance companies, reinsurers are insurance for insurance companies, if that makes any sense, when the loss is too large. For example, say a fire at Fort McMurray, Intact Public Entities does not have the capitalization to pay out a $20 billion loss. They purchase and reevaluate on a year a treaty with reinsurance. Reinsurance has come back and said this is something that we cannot cover because we cannot quantify the risk. So this is why this exclusion is coming in. Under the environmental policy, if there's any questions along that and you want staff to ask us further on that, you can reach out to us at any time. Communicable disease outbreak exclusion. So liability and errors and omissions, this is what is applicable to. The communicable disease outbreak exclusion was generated by COVID-19 over the past 24 months. Effectively, what this is doing is it is saying under these policies that anything now that comes forward on renewal for contracting COVID, for bodily injury or anything like that under the municipal liability would not be picked up. Any actions that come back to you from the statute of limitations through the mandate lockdowns and through the past COVID exposures that we've had, this exclusion is not active and your coverage for the previous would come up to now. Because now we're coming into a place of, I guess, I would say vaccination and general understanding more about the virus. There is a definition that is within the municipal program that also states that the communicable disease is determined to be a pandemic, endemic, outbreak, disaster, or public health or other emergency by the World Health Organization or any agency or authority tasked with overseeing international or global public health, or by the Canadian government. So we're looking at a large type of pandemic situation similar to COVID-19. So as that is not current, this is sort of the exclusion that is being brought in to reduce risk and keep the program not profitable, just sustainable. It's one of those things where claims that are draining it can also increase premiums that are just felt by everybody. Abuse liability, there are changes on the next page, I'll get back to that. But property policy, earthquake and flood deductibles, the change to earthquake and flood effectively is summarized in one thing, where it used to be one deductible by one event. What that is now changed to is there is a deductible for each premises that you are making a claim on. They have also extended the timeline of what is considered one event. So British Columbia, if you remember the Abbotsford Valley, held water for almost 2 weeks. So what has gone on the municipal front, they've taken a look at that and what has gone on through that situation and said if you want it to be within one event, the water has to be there for 7 days, a full week. But in the case of a flood actually causing damage, like say the Merritt, BC sewer treatment plant, generally like if there was a flood that caused damage to that and it was covered peril, then the policy would still respond. So that's effectively the transition of how much one claim is in a time frame, but also how you actually trigger coverage per premises. And rather than one general deductible, it is by building and by premises. That is done for the retention to keep the program in a catastrophic situation, I guess, robust and not exhausted, if that makes any sense, before going to reinsurance. Any questions so far? Important changes to your abuse liability coverage. So prior to this year and through the past, Frank Cowan Company and Intech Public Entities have had an ability to create an occurrence type of abuse policy and fold that into the general liability. There are two types of liability policies. There is occurrence and then there's claims made. Occurrence-based is meaning that at the time of the loss, if it's stated on the statement of claim, if you had coverage in place, You can move away from that provider. The corporation that carried the coverage can be folded. But at the time of loss, if you were on the insurance policy and that's the statement of date, then you have the insurer has obligation to defend you if it's a covered claim. Claims made basis policies are a little bit different. And what that means is the policy has to be active to actually trigger a claim. So this is standard for cyber liability, environmental liability, errors and omissions, directors and officers, and it's effectively limiting the liability of the insurer that has been off risk for say 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Abuse liability, the judgments for this are coming up, and it's one of those things where if on an occurrence form, you can't sign away the rights of a minor, and they are there until they turn 18. So the practices of what is happening 20 years ago in the township could actually be what is possibly brought against you today, just to frame how abuse liability can possibly work. What they have done is they've changed abuse liability to a claims made form, and they've reduced the limit to $2 million. And what this has done is it is triggered them to provide an abuse application every year. And what this does is it takes you through a risk management exercise of assessing this risk, of determining where and when you have this exposure, how you are trying to control this, do you have an abuse policy in place, and how is that determining and defining physical, mental, sexual, yes, I think I mentioned most of them. So if how are you determining that? How is your resolution with employees? How do you handle the whole situation? If you don't have these policies in place, it's effectively bringing the ones that don't have proper risk management in place back into a situation of not having a higher limit that impacts everybody else under the program. So as time goes on, we can work with staff to review any policy for internal harassment, workplace violence, or anything like that. Anti-public entities will definitely handle questions and those policies to give recommendations, to up them, to give better risk control. And with that, if they're accepted as acceptable, you can increase your limit or request higher limits from the $2 million that is being provided going forward. So it's one of those things that is reducing an exposure that can impact everybody on future claim costs for poor practices of municipalities that are being checked on. So effectively, we're coming up to a market standard now. With that, that brings me to program options, because there's always ways to buy more insurance. The first thing that I always try to tell councils is that there's always an ability to increase your liability limits and review the cost benefit of increasing certain lines. For example, your environmental liability limit is $3 million. What is the cost to bring that up to $5 million? There is some way that we can assist and look at prior judgments and claims. Claims in environmental and certain claims are kind of confidential, but we can at least give anti-public entities, ask them to give us some feedback on what they're seeing currently for claims. So in the case that council asks for higher liability limits on any limit of liability, we can research that for you and give you at least a proposal and present it in front of council in general or in camera. It depends on what you would like to see done. Crime coverage. There are optional crime coverages. Some of them are applicable to a cyber type of loss, which we'll cover in closed. Property coverage, income replacement. The insurer is just making a point of saying that we have a rental income and business interruption type of coverage for you. We're just trying to make sure that the amount that you are carrying is adequate and updated. Also, remotely piloted aircraft systems. This is fun stuff, and I've had to deal with this on a whim. That is for drones. Your general liability policy is not an aviation liability policy. Aviation liability is incredibly specialized and only provided by a couple providers. In Canada, it tends to flip between Global Aerospace and Allianz. And what ends up occurring is that usually for GIS mapping or fire or any sort of department that, I kind of want to see what's out there, they'll buy a drone and fly it. There's an automatic liability that's associated with that to the municipality because it's a municipal owned and operated drone. So unless there is a coverage put in place that's specialized for that drone, there is no coverage. So we're just bringing it forward as something that can occur. It can be purchased without really thinking about us, but please think about us. So in this report that I've provided to Ann, I believe there's a condensed and a full version. Within the full version, there's also a highlight sheet for each of the coverages that we've done here. I've tried to summarize it in a quick and succinct type of discussion to kind of give an orientation and review. But in the case that you want to dive into anything further, there is a listing of information there for you to review and ask questions at any time to staff. Also within this, I provided this report that I mentioned, this joint and several liability issue from. And it's a paper that was generated in 2021 by Intech Public Entities on escalating municipal claims costs. Just to understand what is impacting municipalities, what is impacting insurance, and what is causing this hard market cycle. We all know that replacement cost of physical assets has gone astronomically crazy over the past 24 months. What costs 200 grand is costing a significant amount more, which we all are very aware, and also the liabilities of things. So if you ever want to read it, and as the joke was earlier, if you want to fall asleep at night, it's there for you. The coalition claims report on cyber as well. I'll highlight it within the in-camera section, but that is also a very fascinating report to give you sort of a current synopsis of what is occurring in the cyber and Internet of Things, and how those claims are being generated, what type of volume they are damaging to clients, and then also some possible fixes. So that's my presentation. If there's any questions, again, if you think of anything after this, you can speak to staff, we can answer questions directly, and be available at any time.
Okay. Perfect, thank you, Chris.
All done.
So we'll take a 5-minute break before we go into closed session. We'll be going into closed session for anybody back there. So be it resolved that we move into closed session at 9:15 p.m. pursuant to section 239 Municipal Act to consider personal matters about identifiable individuals. Advise that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose and the security of the property and municipality. Do I have a mover? Edie, second. Harold, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, I'm recording.
Okay. So be it resolved that this meeting be extended beyond the hour of 9:45 p.m. pursuant to section 11.4 of the procedural bylaw. Can I have a mover? Edie, Harold, all in favor? Gary.
There's those two that's to thank Chris and.
Okay, so be it resolved that we thank Chris Bevan, representing Intact Public Entities, for his presentation to council regarding municipal insurance provisions. Can I have a mover? Edie, second. Cheryl, all in favor? Barry. And be it resolved that we accept the proposal from Intact Public Entities for municipal insurance requirements for the year 2023 for the premium of $175,404. Can I have a mover? Okay. Harold, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried.
Shaker, yeah.
175,000.
Yeah.
Staying one incident could cost you
Millions.
and loss of cost.
So, this is a bit of bad news. Be it resolved that we accept the resignation from Brenda Taylor, nurse practitioner, with regret.
Right.
Yeah, and that we wish her all the best in her future endeavors. So, like I said, we're gonna have staffing challenges.
She's moving on.
Yeah,
Everybody's facing issues,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, then I read in the paper that the Sioux Area Hospital is short of staff, 200 people.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I know.
And
it's the same across Canada,
Well,
you read about.
it's like, let's hope our little medical facility survives.
I think what hospitals need to do is start reinstating people who had challenged the vaccine
Yeah.
policy, right, but they're not.
Well, and we
They're
have,
not.
whatever, we have plans for staffing issues there. There'll be some meetings in the new year. So can I have a motion or a mover for that? Mary Ann, second. Cheryl, all in
Okay.
favor? Carried.
Yeah, my daughter's up there Nellie Lake, it's nothing for her to work 9 days straight.
Oh, yeah.
And
When's
some
that?
12-hour days and plus on call at night. I said, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Because they gave her a place to stay in the hospital so she'd stay there. And in order to be able to take these on-call night, yeah, like wow.
So, along with that, be it resolved that we advertise for a nurse practitioner for the Massey Medical Clinic and that an interview committee comprised of the medical clinic manager, Marla Toulouse, Dr. Cherian, and the clerk administrator, and to be established to conduct interviews to select a suitable candidate. Can I have a mover? Edie and Mike, all in favor? Carried.
What's the salary they're offering for the nurse practitioner?
And ballpark,
She's 120. 120.
not bad.
It's funded.
It was the going
It's
rate,
fine.
right?
It's kind of the par.
Whatever the going rate was, kind of thing.
Okay, one thing before we adjourn, I forgot to mention, did we mention the days of the committee meetings? I don't think so.
No,
No.
so,
So typical
Yes.
Public Works is first Wednesday of the month?
You'll send us an email.
Yeah.
yeah, because we're not gonna have January, because we're not gonna have committee members back until January 11th.
Right.
So probably meetings will start February.
Yeah, sounds good.
Public
Is
Works.
there here?
Um,
Or where are they?
No, here.
Public Works would be here, Parks and Rec is usually at the arena, ECDEV is here.
Yeah.
They've been virtual, I don't know if you're going back to in-person with your ECDEV.
Well, I don't see why not.
Probably.
Yeah.
Unless things.
I like in person.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Yeah. I like Zoom too,
I like
but
Zoom when it's
whatever.
cold and dark,
Yeah,
but
you need to sit
at
down
the beginning,
sometime.
we need to.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, for sure.
In person.
I know the library is gonna be Zoom all
I
winter.
saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way they wanted it, and we're actually losing our CEO there as well. We'll be looking for a new one. So, very unfortunate, she was a rock star of a CEO, she did a lot for that library, but you get kids, they're not from here, they do some time and then they wanna go back home. So, we'll find another one.
What's the other one? I guess it's.
So recreation meetings are usually the
Third
Wednesday.
or no,
Yeah.
Third
yeah, third Wednesday, because council's second and fourth, so third Wednesday, and then ECDEV is the third Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah.
So, and library is Thursday, third Thursday, and I think that, museum is third Thursday as well. See, it always conflicted with the library meeting.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, when the Ag Society's on Monday or something.
It's kind of like here and there.
Yeah, there's good news for the Ag Society and Massey in general. There's
Yes.
gonna be a
Farm
farm
show
show
coming.
Yeah, I heard about
Yeah.
something.
mid-September.
Yeah.
It was
Well, that's,
supposed to be-
the meeting on the 19th, that's what they wanna come and talk to
Just have
council
to do their
about, so.
presentation on.
Yeah, it was supposed to be in Earlton and
Yeah, I told
Vail.
you that.
So that could be
Yeah.
huge.
He's called me a few times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't talk at 5 p.m. It's every day.
Oh, that's gonna be fun. I just got home.
Memory.
Yes.
5 o'clock sharp, and I'm like,
So I get up third Tuesday?
ECDEV's third Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Third Tuesday.
yes, yes. Okay, so be it resolved that the time is 10:25 PM and this meeting will be adjourned until the next regular meeting or call of the chair, and the next regular meeting is the 19th.
18th of December.
Six or 6:30?
I know a lot of people are asking for 7, but I mean,
That's what most people were saying. Some of the farmers that I spoke to said, we'd love to attend the meetings. And can we look at sometime maybe going virtual? I know this, at work we have, I can't remember what it's called right now. It's called OWL system. So it actually just, have you seen it? Sits at the
Yes,
table.
I'm gonna look at getting one
interactive.
because rather
I
than
think
this.
they're around $1,800.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
So when you're speaking,
Owl?
yeah,
Yeah,
it'll
Owl.
turn, say if Bucky was speaking, and it turns to Bucky. And it's just, so
Okay.
it's really, good
Eskimos,
audio, good
they're in
video.
this one, yeah.
There's so much
See,
technology.
Zoom worked really well, the only issue was the audio, because then you had feedback. But really, it was great, because it
Yeah,
it
whenever you
was-
were speaking, whoever was on the line would see. But the audio was the issue, but this should solve all that.
Yeah, it's an amazing system.
Whatever.
But you're talking about streaming though?
Yeah.
You're talking about,
Yeah, people are asking for like live
yeah,
streaming.
because
yeah.
this, we don't have good internet here to stream.
No.
What do you have
I
here?
thought
Just
we
like
had
the.
Starlink.
Starlink.
Yeah, well, it's
Really?
still
We
in
have
the
Starlink
truck,
at
it's
home.
not, yeah.
I think it's
Well, I
just we
think
have a firewall.
Starlink.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
security.
There's firewalls
So
and
maybe-
security.
Because it's security,
Oh.
security
So my
issue.
wife, like.
Because I know
Yeah, she liked
VPN
it.
slow it down, so I'm sure the firewall's slowing it down somehow.
Wishes to start.
Because when we were
No,
just
I
using
think
it
it's
off
because of our
the,
firewall.
Firewall.
off the laptop, it was really fast, but now we're connected to the
They have a
network,
firewall
so
work
it
too on
was
their
slow.
laptop too. So I talked to Mark, their IT guy, and see.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Anyway,
We'll
let's
investigate.
stick
Yeah,
with
that's something
6 PM for now. and-
Okay.
and,
let the community, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to
play
figure
it.
out at our next meeting.
6 is good, none of us are getting younger.
No, I like it. Well, you know what? Then we're not home at 10:30.
Yeah.
No, I've usually been in bed for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I don't spring clean anymore either.
Yeah.
So, should I have a motion to adjourn?
Couldn't be hard to get that.
Cheryl, second.
I will motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Oh, yeah, Mike, we need to stay.
Mike.
So, good for this meeting, folks. I thought.
Yes, bud.
Yes.
Productive.
Thank you.